Welcome back to Building Nebraska, a podcast for dreamers and doers. We'll ignite your passion for entrepreneurship while highlighting those who turn ideas into reality. Building Nebraska is brought to you by the Angler Agribusiness Entrepreneurship Program at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Today, we are in Broken Bow, Nebraska to highlight one of the premier cattle feeding operations in the world. I am joined by Bill and Jerry Adams of Adams Land and Cattle to learn more about their story. Thanks for being here today.
Well, thank you for coming. We appreciate it. This is really quite a program.
Yes, we're really excited to dive in. So give us a glimpse into the early beginnings of the business. It's hard to imagine humble beginnings for such an incredible company where it is today, but shed some light on the early days of Adams.
So when our mother and father, when they were married, then they worked with my grandfather for quite a few years. And then in 1951, they bought 2 quarters east of Broken Bow. They were just a great parent and great mentors. Bill, you want to talk about each of those?
Yeah, so my father was really a entrepreneur, very innovative in farming, good cattle person, and everything come towards business, whatever he did do. And my mother, she brought in the Christian part to us, church every Sunday for sure. And also a lot of the, as far as work ethics every day that, we had the milk cows, we had the chickens, we had to clean the barn, milk the cows, get the eggs. And along with that, we would sell milk. Well, it's a small grade A dairy. We'd sell some milk to the local community, just like a farmer's market, and also the eggs with that. Going back to what Jerry was talking about, my father, he worked with his father, our grandfather, for quite a few years in the late 40s, and in the early 50s, he got an opportunity to. They were going to sell the ground, so my grandfather bought a section of ground, and my father bought a half section. He absolutely loved farming, and so it was all dry land, but it was sub-irrigated, so he could have alfalfa, and then he could grow corn. And in the early, the 55, 56, he put in the first irrigation well to increase productivity for dry years, and started out with small full tow line, and then went to a veneer sprinkler, and then to a valley sprinkler later on when the valley come out with the wheel water drive. But as he went through, he found out that he couldn't just sell it as commodity, so he needed to market his crops. And so that's when he got into buying, I think he had about 100 head of feeder cattle, and he would sell the crops that way through the cattle, and that's the way he would always look at it. He'd get a better price out of it by going through cattle and surviving that way. So
I'm sure glad you didn't talk about all the trouble we got into.
Yeah.
Now's the time to spill. I'm sure our listeners are really excited to hear about that.
we had our share of water fights in the milk barn when we were cleaning up and all that. And so, our mother was quite the discipline, so that was okay.
One day I looked at Bill and I said, we were probably 5 or 6, looked at Bill one day, I said, what did we do wrong today? And Bill goes, what do you mean? I go, we didn't get a spanking today, so we were always in trouble.
Yeah. Lots of shenanigans for sure. Well, starting out feeding 100 head to now your capacity of 125,000 head, that's a lot of growth over a 70-year time span. Talk about the growth that's taken place over the years.
So let's back up. Well, right now we got 125,000 in 3 feedlots, and we got 125 to 130 out in backgrounding. But I'll come back to that. So in 1971, Dad had the opportunity to buy some land south of Broken Bow, which is now the 85,000 head feedlot where that's at. So he bought the land, as Bill said, he loved buying dry land farming, converted to pivot or gravity irrigation. And at that time, pivot just came into the county 1967 in that time period. So late 60s, early 70s, he really enjoyed buying dry land, and convert it to irrigation. So we bought the south place. It only had 3 pens of cattle, and it really wasn't a feedlot. It was just 3 pens. But he bought it for the dry land farming to convert it to irrigation, and there's some pasture there too. And at that time, he only had 4 employees, and so he needed one of his 4 sons to come back. So oldest brother, Dwayne, was in Vietnam flying airplanes. Bill and Lawrence were in college, University of Nebraska, and I was working for ConAgra. So I told Dad I will come back for 4 or 5 years until one of my other brothers come back, because it was really too small of an operation, and I loved what I was doing at ConAgra. And so I came back in 1972, where he bought it in 71. And Bill, you want to talk about how we survived those first few years?
So here you got 4 brothers coming back with their wives, back into the business. The business was not to the point that it could survive with that many families there. And so fortunately, we had wives that could work and supported us for a couple of years of, making all, payments and everything that we needed at that point in time. So we didn't have any kind of income as far as for us until a couple of years later. And unfortunately, our wives remind us of that every so often that
They do.
They started us out. So there you go.
Very cool. Well, in the development of the South Lot, what would you say is kind of a turning point to really expanding the numbers down there?
Well, first, talk about opportunities. So, let's back up. There's really 3 ways that we and most all businesses grow. They all have a strategy, but very seldom does a strategy really work. It's really 3 other things. It's either opportunity, investment, or black swans. That's really what creates growth or non-growth, are those 3 things. Strategy, you have it, but those other 3 things really make the difference. So opportunities. So it's really an opportunity, something in that point in time that works. So in 1971, the opportunity for my dad to buy the South place. So he bought the place. So there's really about 4 different areas that really grew. So in 71, he bought the South place. From 80 to 97, we just used profits to grow the feedlot and the cattle. And then in 2000, the county was looking at county zoning, and we didn't have zoning before. So when zoning was applied, we knew we had to have, that would be the maximum footprint and maximum head count. So in 97 to 99, we just really expanded. So that was a 3rd area of expansion. And then the 4th area or 5th area of expansion was 2008. The Nebraska had a law that wouldn't allow us to feed cattle at different locations that we didn't own. In 2008, there was a law that was dropped and allowed us to expand. So at that time, we had basically the 2 feedlots, and we started backgrounding cattle. So again, what I said first, we now have 3 lots, 125,000 head. We've got 125, 130,000 out in backgrounders in 85 different locations today.
Wow.
So that was the growth of opportunity. So that was one of the 3 reasons that you grow. Bill, you want to talk about innovation?
Well, let's go back a little bit. As far as the strategy that our father had was, and he passed away in 90, and so up until that time, he always kept from profits, we would expand the feedlot probably 2,000-3,000 head a year, and he'd always want to keep it in balance of buying land along with that for stability, and that was always his strategy as he went through. Later on, we were never as good of farmers as he would ever be, so,
we didn't have GPS at that time.
No.
We couldn't get a straight road.
Yeah, exactly. His was always really straight. But anyway, then starting in the 90s, then we started expanding more as far as on the feedlot. And then to do that, we got up to about 40,000 head, and we had to do something different on as far as a mill or feeding, and not just loading into the feed trucks. But along with that, went to a batch feeding, automatic feeding system, brought in the software to do the batching, and for quality control and consistency of the mix. And so we expanded it to a point of that we could double the size of the feedlot if we needed to. We didn't know where we were going to be at that point in time. So we had that. We changed the processing area. Eventually went to sorting. The processing went into sorting. Went into BMI sort after that. As far as trying to get more consistency in the as far as quality and control and choice or anyway. Going back to get quality and yield on all the animals at that point with BMI. And so now today we have everything as far as in individual animal identification. We can track every animal at the time, the day that we buy them to the day, all the way through, clear through the packing plant, what they yield, what they graded. And so we have all that information that we can bring back into it.
Very cool.
You want to talk about a little bit on the software side of it?
Like I think Bill mentioned, so we had 42 spreadsheets in 2013. We had multiple answers for the same question. So we made a decision we had to get it down. So we took 42 spreadsheets from 2013 to 2017, a 4-year period. We got it down to one version of the truth, 42 spreadsheets into a data warehouse and then a BI reporting. So from there, we've kept track, as Bill said, of every animal we own from the day we own them, individually electronic tag, no matter if it goes to backgrounding or we buy an animal on the ranch. From that time forward, we keep track of every animal every day in at least one activity. What did they eat? And then any type of health or vaccines, we capture that every day. We got millions and millions of data going in every day of the whole system because one animal has at least one data point. So we've done this, and then about a year ago, when we seen we really had this, we started we switched all the data company to a different company, and we're commercializing that. And part of that is also the brazen product with Tyson. So we buy an animal off the ranch, either directly off the ranch or through video auction, and we monitor that animal from the time we own them through the ranch, through the feedlot, through harvest, and we calculate the amount of carbon per unit of beef per day. And when an animal goes out, today it has to have at least 10% less carbon for every pound of beef, or it automatically gets sorted off when it goes on the truck. Today we're averaging about 35 to 40% less carbon per unit of beef. So this whole idea of monitoring an animal as individuals versus pens is really our real forte.
Absolutely. Well, what have these large sets of data enabled you to do from a management perspective, having all of these at your disposal?
Oh, it's unlimited. Every day, every week we have 2 meetings and we talk about what happened here or why did it not work or and we don't do it by pens, we do it by individuals. So as Bill said, BMI sort, we're actually sorting cattle because of BMI. And then they go into their cohorts. So you may have an animal that's 1,600 pounds and 54 inches high, or an animal that's 52 inches high and only 1,200 pounds. They'll have the same type of carcass characteristics when they go to the packing plant. So it really ends up being a uniform carcass that we send to Tyson. So, but then you got that's in carcass. Then you have animal health, and you have all the different types of movement of cattle. So it really ends up being in fact, a lot of times people come in here and said, you guys are just a data company. You're not a cattle feeder, or you're a data company that feeds cattle. But we don't our pride is we're using data. We're a data-driven company. Everything we do is data-driven. So
Absolutely. Well, to gather this data, it takes a pretty robust team and lots of different departments. How have you enabled your staff, both on the yard and here in the office, to work with this data to make it successful?
Well, I think it's just a culture. And Abram Babcock is our president. He's an epidemiologist. He's very scientific. We do a lot of research, but he's a terrific leader. And the whole management team is really focused on doing the right thing and looking at data to drive it. So that's really how that has all evolved.
Yeah. Well, even the backgrounders every day they sent data in as far as what was fed, what was given to each animal, if it's treated, or if one died, or anything else. Is that we have all that information daily, every day. So,
yeah.
And along with that is when they're purchasing cattle, at every animal, if it's going to backgrounding or to the feedlot, we track them from that day on, with a dangle tag or an electronic tag. And so we know from that day clear through that we have every animal and what the data is, what was transpired with that animal.
Well, we've talked about or touched on the backgrounding network a number of times so far in our conversation, but I'd love to know what factors you think have contributed to being able to build such a robust backgrounding network.
The individual animal data. And so we can monitor every animal every day, what they're eating and what they're given to. So it's really a data system. Although we have backgrounding reps, I think there's 6 of them. They all have different pods, like 20 pods, and they go out and actually physically see the animals and talk to the feedlot managers every 3 weeks. But it's a data-driven. Before we had the data-driven that way, it was just terrible. I mean, we couldn't monitor things. We had to be out there every week. We still missed things. So using an electronic tag and individual animal, it was the game changer for the whole company. So we have a supply chain now for the feedlots with the backgrounders. I think very few people can make backgrounding work, and it's really because they can't monitor what's really going on as an individual versus the whole group. So I think that was a big secret.
Well, we've kind of taken a glimpse at a few different aspects of the company, but if you had to summarize what the day-to-day operations are in your business, either, collectively or on the yard, how would you summarize what you do here at Adams?
Summarization is we're a data-driven company that uses data to buy cattle, to do production, and to marketing. And therefore, everybody is very focused on quality control and doing the right things, and making sure what we're doing is for the consumer. So that's probably it. Let's go back. We had talked about 3 things that make a company grow. Mm-hmm. And the strategy, we said, you have a strategy, but that's not normally what happens. It was opportunity. Bill talked about innovation. The third thing is black swans. Black swan. Black swan is when an outside force does something that changes the cattle industry, usually negatively. And we've had 5 of them that I can remember. So the first one, so I came back in 72. And so I was only going to be here for 3 or 4 years. So I came back and I was the only one here. Dad had 4 employees. And in 73, a year later, the Nixon price freeze cratered the market. The Nixon price freeze capped retail, and it just cratered the market. And so at that time, our dad would buy cattle at Lexington and Holdridge, Oklahoma, feed them from 500 pounds to 850, 900 pounds, and sell them as feeders. And so I remember going to him, I said, Dad, we're going to lose $150 a head if we sell these cattle as feeders. We can't lose anymore. And he looked at me and kind of laughed. He says, well, we could lose more, but if that's what you want to do, we'll do it. Well, we didn't lose $150 a head. We lost $300 per head. Today's value from 1973 to today, $300 is $1,700 per head.
Wow.
It's the biggest dollar figure loss ever, even through today. So I went to Dad. I said, okay, I'm the one about broke you. I'm going to stay here long enough till I figure out this cattle business. I'm still here. I'm still trying to figure it out.
But that was the start of us getting into the feedlot and feeding cattle all the way out too. So
Yeah. Before that, it was always selling feeder cattle.
yeah.
And now it's finishing out. So that's how we got in the finishing cattle business. The second black swan that I remember was 1986, the dairy buyout. The dairy buyout, I think it was like August of 1986. They had so much dairy animals. They were dumping milk down in the drain, and they decided to buy dairy cows in a 3-year period to cut the supply of dairy cows. That just cratered the cattle market. Interesting is dairymen got subsidies, cattlemen didn't. The second black swan that I remember. The third one was a 3-day blizzard we had in 2005, and Broken Bow was the epicenter of the snowstorm. It was just after it started just rain after Thanksgiving, and it rained for a day and a half, and then we had 3 days of a blizzard, and it was always in the same direction, 100 to 120 mile an hour, 24 hours a day for 3 days. And when after the 3 days, Bill and I were in Denver to a meeting, we finally got back. We drove in the lot, and there was bare ground, and there's 20-foot drifts. We had 85,000 head just walking around the feedlot, and so we had to go to work. We couldn't sell cattle because they're all mixed up. It was really about 6 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks into it, we finally got to a point we could sort cattle by weight only and to market it. So that was a real eye-opener for us. And the one thing that really happened was if we would have stopped at that time, we would have been broke. So we do like anything else, just take it and move on and keep going because you didn't want to stop. It worked out. Mm-hmm. So the next one was 2019 Tyson fire in Holcomb, Kansas. I was on a fishing trip with my son and grandson, and it came across, and for 3 days, the market just cratered. A little hard fishing in Minnesota when that happened. But again, what happened was when you take away shackle space, all of a sudden you got more cattle than you do shackle space. And so that was another black swan. The last black swan I really remember was 2020, the COVID. Again, you couldn't be selling, they went to about, half or 2/3 slaughter. Not enough shackle space for the cattle. So a black swan is an outside event that really hurts the cattle market. I read a deal one time that I thought really made a lot of sense, and I'll read it. The response to a black swan event is more important than the event itself. Again, how do you respond to a black swan, not the black swan? And that's really always stuck with me. How we respond, and most people respond on a black swan that hurts you. You give up, or you just figure out what you're going to do. I really always like that comment.
Yeah.
So that was really the, again, how things grow, opportunity, innovation, and black swans.
Mm-hmm. Well, in any business that you run, there's going to be ups and downs, of course, but navigating through those is a true testament to running a successful business. What would you say to an entrepreneur or a business owner who is experiencing their own black swan right now and trying to figure out how to navigate that?
I think the real issue is look at it and what options do you have excuse me, what options do you have to migrate out of it? Because there's always 3 or 4 options, and you pick out one and just go do it, and just keep a positive and say, I look at it, black swans, as much as it hurts you at the time, I always look back and say, boy, I'm glad that happened.
Yeah. You learn more from that than what you did before.
You never learn by making money. You learn by not making money.
Fair enough. Well, it's one thing to grow a business, but it's another thing to grow it to be such a premier and industry-leading business. What do you think has contributed to this trajectory of success?
I think it's the management team.
Very much. Yeah. The management team, the people involved, I mean, they're the ones that make it happen every day. You know, we're just kind of here, but they really do run this business. And it's great to see that happen. I mean, that they take the ownership of the company and move on, I think.
I think somebody asked me, why don't you just retire? We're both in the mid-70s. I think both would say, we just like to come here and watch the management team and what they're doing.
Very cool. Well, for a business that started out with 4 employees to now be as expansive as it is, how have you maintained the family business aspect of what you do while continuing to bring people in and use their talents?
It's just really a culture. It's a culture. If it's our family, in our family is all the employees, and that's when we really think about it. It just is a family operation that they're really involved in, and the management team, they truly believe they are running this organization, and they are running it.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, you're a substantial employer in the area. What kind of involvement do you feel or responsibility you have in the community, whether that be Broken Bow or Custer County in general?
I think we're really involved in the county. I think we're really, and I say just us, a lot of employees, and very involved in the state. I'm very involved in the industry. I co-helped start the community college in the Bellevue University here. I started Beef Alliance, 9 of the biggest cattle feeders in the United States, to deal with so state and federal association cattlemen. There's more cow-calf than there is feedlots, and so we needed an organization that would deal with feedlots. So 2 of us ended up starting Beef Alliance, again, 9 biggest cattle feeders in the United States. We deal with what issues feedlot or the cattle industry. We started out doing research, and now we've migrated to 2 or 3 years ago. There's an FDA on implants. Today we deal a lot with legislative issues, D.C. Every year we go back to D.C. for almost a whole week, talking to our representatives, talk to USDA, talk to EPA. So I think it's really a focus of non-competitive and deal with that. Interesting is, our organization, the CEO or president has to be at the meeting every quarter. So we make decisions, and we make it in the spot. And all the different boards I'm on, that might be the most fun, because to be with the leaders of the cattle feeders organizations is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Being a leader in cattle feeding is one thing, but one thing that I was really impressed with when I interned here was just how much you were at the forefront of advocating for animal welfare standards, implementing those, and making sure that message is relayed to the public. How have you managed to do that and be so vocal about the animal welfare issues?
You want to do it, Mike?
Go ahead.
Well, back away. So I think 25, 30 years, we've always sponsored the 3rd grade. We started out Broken Bow 3rd grade, now we do the whole county 3rd grade. And so we sponsor them, we bring them in, and we go to their class and teach them. We make rations in this class. So, M&Ms and those kind of things, we put this together, show them a 3rd grade, what does a ration look like? How do you mix it? We bring them to the location and take them to the feedlot on that. For many years, the BQA, we sponsor Amy Staples and Barb Biller head up and do BQA for students. And I think there's 100 and some every year with the county agent do that every year. So I think we really focus on educating in the school system. We support the school systems, and we really encourage, not just locally, but we have groups in here, maybe 1 or 2 a week from Iowa or Kansas. Well, Canada was a couple weeks ago. So, but we really encourage to help tell our story of the beef industry. Mm-hmm. We're very proud of the beef industry.
Well, looking ahead, what are some challenges or opportunities you see in the cattle feeding industry in the next 10 to 15 years?
Well,
Takes a sigh.
Yeah, the one thing that we're looking at is, the rolled concrete pins, putting concrete in all the pins, and then from there going to putting it in digesters and, taking the gas off of that, and ended up going that way. It looks like from the tests that we've made so far that it's going to be very advantageous to go that way in every test that we've made internally on the rolled concrete at this point in time. So that's one area. Markets, you do have to deal with that all the time. They change as you go through. That'll be a challenge. What else, Jerry? I guess as far as attitudes and stuff of the public and how you deal with that and keep a positive note as far as beef is really help food that we need to be eating all the time. So
I totally agree. This carbon deal is really important. It's not like a pad like other things like fake meat, and it's driven by Europe. And so I think our challenge with the beef industry is how do we get ahead of this? And so back in Exarban, I'll give you an example. So 5 years ago, Exarban had a project, and they wanted to do a project additionally that would be focused on the state's number one industry, which is ag. And so Jim Pillen and I were in that meeting, and they asked us, there were only two ag guys in there, and this is before Jim ran for governor, and they asked, what is your challenge the next 5 years? And we said, carbon, methane. And that was an interesting concept because the CEO of Union Pacific was there, and he said, that's my problem. I got diesel going up and down the railroad. I got coal on there. He said, we got a real challenge. And almost all 19 CEOs that was in there, that was theirs, manufacturing or that. From that time, because we were only two in the ag, we started with the project. We needed to know what the baseline, the ag carbon footprint of Nebraska was. And so we went to 4 of the biggest ag lenders in Nebraska, and they contributed $200,000. And we had Greg Tolman from the University of Arkansas. He's an expert in that, to monitor that, or calculate that. That was finished up. The second initiative we had was a USDA project for climate smart beef. We didn't get that grant. The third one was this year, and Exarban helped the state of Nebraska with data and to apply for climate. The name of it was Priority Climate Action Plan. I want the big words for that. But Nebraska a month ago received $307 million for ag in Nebraska, so the state wouldn't figure out how to do that. So again, challenges of carbon methane is a big issue. I think data is really a big issue. So we talk about BMI quite a bit, and we've now been able to take BMI and lay on top of it genomics, and it works. It's an additive. It doesn't cover up. We're looking at, and we don't know if it's going to work, but we think we can add one more thing. So combine 3 things: BMI, genomics, and facial body recognition. If you have that tied with the others, we think we can go gain, conversion, animal health, and maybe marketing. But that's a year or 2, 3 years down the way. But that's how we think. It's a data-driven, and how do you manage individuals and use technology?
Yeah, very cool. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. What else would you like people to know about your business and what you do here at Adams?
We're very proud to be in the cattle business, the beef business. We're very proud to be in Broken Bow and Custer County. We're very proud that we can be part of a lot of other communities with backgrounding. We love that we can contribute to community, to the state, and to the beef industry.
And thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Building Nebraska. Once again, we're in Broken Bow at Adams Land and Cattle visiting with Jerry and Bill Adams. We'll catch you next time.